G'day. Whoops. AJ Mahara here. Codependency. After, what's going on for people with codependency after the BPD relationship breakup? Rumination, cognitive dissonance, longing for that person who you thought they were, and all of those other things that people are going through that I've talked about on this channel for sure. Well, rumination isn't about addiction. And the longing and missing someone isn't all about addiction either. And codependency is not, by itself for most people, an addiction. So there can be some people with codependency have a love addiction. Some people with codependency have a sex addiction. But both of those are fueled by other trauma. By trauma in people's lives. So, and they are escapism of pain, trauma from childhood, not addictions. Oh, sex addiction and love addiction can be like addictions, yes, but they're not addictions like alcoholism. So it's important not to really equate codependency whatsoever with being anything to do with alcoholism or drug addiction, because for most people it isn't. Some people have codependency and they're an alcoholic, or they're working through sobriety, whatever, or they have a drug addiction. And maybe they have to work the steps of NA or AA because of that, but they still need therapy to heal and recover from these relationships, and nobody's going to magically heal in 2 months. The codependency is not, in and of itself, the definition of codependency is not encompassed by saying codependency is an addiction like alcoholism. It's not true. So any of the addictive factors that people with codependency will experience in a relationship with somebody with cluster B, they are, still can't get that bug. They are somewhat addictive in a sense, but that's the chemical soup addiction of intermittent reinforcement, and that horror emotionally of realizing that somebody isn't who you thought they were, and all that goes with that. But that is trauma, and that trauma triggers you back, brings more to your conscious awareness, especially when you get into therapy. But it triggers people with codependency. And then you need this healing recovery journey from the codependency and the relationship with the BPD or the narcissist, but it's not all predicated on addiction at all. So when there's, intermittent reinforcement in a trauma bonded relationship with a cluster B and you have codependency, you're going to experience, when the dopamine is released and things are going great, or the oxytocin, and then when, things can change on a heartbeat with a person with untreated BPD. And then you're going to be like in this really high conflict, they're raging at you or whatever the case is. And so then you're going to release more of serotonin cortisol, the stress hormone. And there's all these different hormones and neurotransmitters. And yes, there's some addiction that develops there, in terms of these relationships really being trauma bonds, described best by the explanation of Stockholm Syndrome, but it's not all about addiction. And so that addiction, that the part that is the chemical soup of getting a bit addicted, but with what's inside your system, right? And the stress factors and all of that. Now, it's not like alcoholism or whatever. That usually will subside for people within a month or two, especially full no contact. I don't know who's running a motor now. I give up. But so that doesn't last as long as people think it does, even if the trauma bond is not broken. So rumination is not an addiction. Rumination is being driven by obsessive thinking. And why are you obsessively thinking so much? Because you're up here in your head trying to avoid your emotional landscape, trying to avoid your feelings. And so that just strengthens. And you're wondering what they're doing, and you're wondering where they are, and you're wondering if they're going to contact you, or can you contact them? Will they talk to you? Or if you're past that stage, ruminating has its roots in the abuse, the type of relationship, the way they end, the no closure, has its roots in all of that experience. Rumination, longing, missing them. People say like it was like a drug. I just need, to have physical intimacy with him or her one more time. But that's not really addiction talking. That's loss, longing, trauma on top of adverse experience to trauma in childhood, which is what? The root of codependency, or the roots of codependency, not addiction. So the trauma bond informs us more, or if you want to call it a betrayal bond, it informs us way more about what codependency really is in and through the lens of trauma, not 12 steps, not insanity, etc. Codependency, and more to the point, your rumination, your cognitive dissonance, your longing, you're missing this person that wasn't even real, but you didn't know that, missing who they were, wanting that back, is all about the unresolved trauma of that relationship, the unresolved trauma of what caused codependency in your childhood, and or woundedness if it's not, absolutely, but that's usually traumatic for children. So just know codependency. I'm going to have much more coming on this, and I'll let you know when it's ready. Ebook, workbook, course, video series. Working from the pioneering work of someone who did a lot of work in this area, to where codependency would be called codependent personality disorder. So how's that for you? But it is not an addiction. And neither is your ruminating, your obsessive thinking. This is all how people with codependency in repetition compulsion cycles, that's trauma reenactment, and you could be traumatized by the BPD, and you have trauma in your unconscious, probably stuff down there from childhood, if it wasn't really blatant, because it's different for everyone. So just know when you're ruminating, when you're longing, when you're missing them, when you're writing comments all over the place, which is great, comments are welcome in this channel. I'm not telling you what to do. You can comment as many times as you want. You can talk about the same thing as many times as you want, because people need to do that. So watch out for people that tell you, I told you what the cure is. And if you don't do what I said, this is other people say this, then I don't care. And then they just abuse people on their channel. And they admit it. It's not my judgment. They say it themselves. And then they say, but I'm doing that to help people. So that's probably massive codependency mixed with narcissistic personality disorder, gaslighting, to tell you the truth. But what's really important is that don't fall for this misinformation. Somebody who must have other issues, as they've alluded to. But if you are a person with codependency and you don't have an alcohol addiction, you don't have a drug addiction, therapy is your way forward. Therapy is the way to heal. Ruminating is repetitive, is painful, is traumatizing. So is cognitive dissonance and all the other moving pieces after these relationships. But it's not just about the relationship or the trauma or the abuse from the borderline or the narcissist. It goes back to childhood and what created codependency for you as well. So it's a dualistic, multi-layered reality that people need to get into therapy to deal with. I'm out here to work with you. If I resonate with you, you can go to ajmahari.ca. That's where you can read about, find out, purchase session or sessions with me if I resonate with you. But the number one thing I want you to hear out of this is your rumination and all that you're going through right now with your codependency and after the BPD or NPD relationship breakup, it's not all about addiction at all. It's about the trauma bond. And the trauma bond in and of itself is not an addiction either. So be careful what you're listening to. Be careful what you take in. And just know videos, mine included, are not a substitute for therapy. And no YouTuber should be telling you what to do, because there's no magical do these 1, 2, 3, 4 things, go do 12 steps nonsense, because it is nonsense for codependence if you don't have alcoholism or drug addiction. So your rumination is not an addiction, nor is all of what else you're experiencing. It's not the addiction. So take care.